to Beyond Church Walls. I am your host, Brad Crow. Around here, we discuss various topics from a biblical perspective and the perspective of Christ followers. Thank you for joining today, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Crow, and you've tuned in for another episode of Beyond Church Walls. And I know, 2 episodes in just a few weeks, crazy. It's getting crazy around here. Today, before we get into the episode, I just want to take a moment and however you choose to listen, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, I appreciate it so much. If you're not following on that platform, I would recommend that you do so. It just really helps out the channel and helps it get out to other people. And so we appreciate that. And today I want to talk about the illusion of success. In the last episode, we talked about how God defines success differently than the world, which really isn't no surprise to us, but we just kind of got into that a little deeper. And today I want to talk about it a little bit more and talk about the illusion of success. You know, we moved into our house several years ago, and there was a washed out area up beside the house. And so one weekend I decided I was going to go get some dirt and I was going to kind of slope it away from the house. That way water would not be running down the side of the house when it rained. Went and got a couple loads of dirt and shoveled them, and it pretty much was a pretty good Saturday. I was pretty sore, but I was really happy with what I had accomplished. I stepped back. I looked at that mountain of dirt that was once on a trailer and now was laid upon the ground. And I was pretty proud of myself. I'm not going to lie. It was some manly work, which I don't get to do very often. And so I just stepped back. I was proud. And I even brought Kathleen out and was like, look at that. Doesn't that look so much better? And then I explained that, you know, once grass started taking hold, it would look so much better and it would really build up a root system. That way, when it rained, it wouldn't wash out. I really thought that what I had done was successful, but as you would have it, I didn't fix the root of the problem. See, when it would rain, water would come down our drive and it would run off the side of our drive, and it was running right down beside the house. And so unfortunately, it was about a couple years ago that I did this, and it needs done again because I never actually took the time to fix it correctly. All I did was give myself an illusion of success. It looked right, but it wasn't. And that is what I really want to focus on today. Things that look right, but are not. You know, if we're not careful, we'll start following things that look like success, but God isn't actually in them. This entire idea really came from some videos that Mike Winger put out. And if you don't follow his podcast or follow him on YouTube, I would strongly recommend that you do. It's Mike Winger, the Bible thinker, and really good videos he put out. And he talked about, he's been exposing some things taking place. Primarily, some of the things he's exposing have been taking place in the charismatic movement. And with some of those things, one of the videos he put out recently was exposing Sean Bowles, who was kind of tied to Bethel Church and well known for his worship ministry and large events where he would often speak a word to people claiming it was from God. Mike, in his video, builds a compelling case that Sean was using social media to obtain information on people attending the event beforehand and then using that information to present a word from God. Mike based this claim from information he obtained from numerous people that attended events, individuals that claimed to have been directly involved or affected, and then individuals that worked for or with Sean, and from publicly available content from those events. And so I would recommend you go to Mike's channel. He's the one that interviewed. He's the one that put out the videos. He's the one that put it all together. And so I don't want to misrepresent and get into that too much. But I do want to just say for a few moments, if you could just kind of think about that destructive behavior, it would cause these people to get into these life-changing decisions. So marriage, career, ministry involvement, all the while could be based upon something completely false, which the video makes a very compelling case that people were doing these things based upon false information they were getting from Sean. So they can think God is guiding them when they're actually following a human agenda. It creates this false trust and authority. The person delivering the fake word gains influence that isn't earned by true spiritual fruit. Followers may start to measure success by how convincing or charismatic the leader is, but not by God's truth. This is why Paul warns in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, starting in verse number 20. It says, "Do not treat prophecies with contempt, but test them all. Hold on to what is good. Reject every kind of evil." Why does Paul tell us to test them? Because he knew there were and always would be people that would speak in error. Some of these people are simply misguided. Others have selfish motives, but in the end, neither is inspired by the Holy Spirit. I believe this warning from Paul isn't just about the words people speak. It's about the people themselves. Some would look like they belong, who walk with Jesus, participate in ministry, and seem to do everything right, can still be spiritually corrupt. To further illustrate this, we can look no further than Judas. He was part of the 12. He held a position of trust, authority, and close access to Jesus. He looked the part and he participated in ministry. He walked with Jesus and traveled with the other apostles. He witnessed miracles such as feeding the 5,000 and healing the sick. He took part in teaching, traveling, and ministry work alongside the other apostles. Yet he had a hidden agenda. He was a thief. In John chapter 12, he got beside himself because some expensive perfume wasn't sold and given to the poor. Instead, it was broke and anointed the feet of Jesus. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. He ultimately betrayed Jesus for money. Jesus at the Last Supper reveals the true heart of Judas. In Matthew 26, starting in verse number 20, Jesus tells them, talking to his disciples, "One of you will betray me." And the disciples begin to ask, "Surely you don't mean me, Lord?" You see, they're asking because they don't know. They don't know who's going to betray. So that tells me that Judas obviously looked like one of them. As soon as Jesus said, "One of you is going to betray me," they didn't say, "Oh, he's talking about Judas." No, he looked the part. He confused the disciples. Jesus knew his motive. And so John 13, 21 through 27, Jesus identifies Judas as soon as Judas took the bread. Satan entered into him. In Revelation chapter 3, Jesus is speaking to the church in Sardis, and he says, "I know your works. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead." They were not a struggling, empty church. They had a reputation. People talked about them. They were known. They likely had activities, structure, gatherings. From the outside, everything looked fine. They were thriving. If they existed today, they would probably be well attended, organized, respected. People from all kinds of communities in the surrounding area would have probably attend them. People walking in would immediately not say, "Something's wrong here." But God saw on the inside and said, "You are dead." Not weak, not struggling, dead. All of the things I've talked about today have one thing in common. They look successful until God spoke. Judas walked with Jesus and participated fully in ministry alongside the other apostles. Yet he was a thief and ultimately betrayed Jesus. The church in Sardis looked alive, active, and faithful to the world, but Jesus warned they were spiritually dead. Proximity to ministry, outward appearances, or impressive activity does not guarantee someone or even an entire community is truly guided by the Holy Spirit. 1 John chapter 4, verse number 1 says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." The danger isn't just following, it's also becoming it. Here's the part we don't like to talk about. It's easy to hear all of this and think about them. It's them. It's not us. It's them. It's the false teachers. It's the misleading leaders. It's the churches that look alive but aren't. But what if the bigger danger, or what if a danger just as big, is us? Because the illusion of success doesn't just exist on stages. It can exist in our own lives. Judas didn't start by betraying Jesus. He started by following him. The church in Sardis didn't start dead. They started alive. That's what makes this so dangerous. It doesn't announce itself. It drifts. Slow drift. Not a sudden collapse. No one wakes up one day and says, I think I'll become spiritually fake today. It's slower than that. It's when we care more about how things look than what God is actually doing. We measure fruit by numbers instead of obedience. We start performing instead of surrendering. We get comfortable being close to Jesus without actually listening to him. You can be around the things of God and still miss God. Our pastor at Greenwood First Assembly, Charlie Murphy, he actually preached along these lines a couple months ago, where he talked about how we have to be super careful not to just live in close proximity to Jesus, but we have to actually have a life with Jesus. We have to actually be committed to Jesus, and that we have to be careful. And this was the main point of his sermon. We have to be careful not to be so involved in the church, not to be so involved with titles. We're teaching a class. We're leading the youth. We're pastoring a church. We're part of the worship team. We're doing all these things that we forget about the main focus of why we're doing all those things. The main focus, why we're doing those things, it all points back to Jesus. And so he cautioned us not to get so involved with things that we miss the point. And so that's where I think we can fall into this slow drift, where we start to focus on things. We start to get comfortable being close to things, and we forget about Jesus. So let me ask you a few honest questions. If God removed the results, would I still be faithful? If things got really hard, if things got really difficult, if things got extremely hard, would I still be faithful? If no one saw it, would I still do it? See, social media right now, you can log in and you can start going through videos, and you don't have to scroll very far before you find somebody that's giving something away or doing something nice because they want the views on social media. And many times I wonder, if no one was looking, would they still buy someone lunch? If no one was looking, would they still leave a large tip? If no one was looking, would they still gift whatever they're gifting to someone? Do I want God's voice or just something that sounds like it? Because imitation can look really close to the real thing until it's tested. Looking back at that dirt I laid by the house, the problem wasn't what I could see. It's that I didn't address the real issue. You see, when I first took care of everything, it was during the summer and there was no rain in the area. But eventually, the water was there. And guess what? I found out that the issue, the whole thing that started this whole mess, it was still there. I just covered it with something that looked right for a time. And over time, it exposed itself. Spiritually, we can do the same thing. We can cover things with activity, with ministry, with language, with appearance. But if the foundation isn't right, eventually it washes out. So here's the tension. Not everything that looks alive is alive. Not everything that works is from God. In John 15:5, Jesus is speaking and says, I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Jesus said it plainly in this verse. Apart from him, you and I can do nothing. Not a little, not less, but nothing.